not born into a particularly religious family, especially considering the vocation that I find myself in these days. I mean, my parents had both been raised in varying degrees of connection with Christian congregations, but by the time I came along, or at least from what they tell me, they weren't actively part of any sort of faith community. Indeed, my dad even considered himself agnostic for many years. But as things go, we ended up getting drawn into the life of a Lutheran congregation, of all places, through their vacation Bible school program, of all things. And me and my younger brother became pretty enmeshed in the life of that community, including participating in some of the children's music opportunities through the years, especially with a group that was known in that congregation as the Carol Choir. We were elementary students up through 6th grade, I believe, from what I remember. And the thing about Carol Choir wasn't just a once every month or two rehearsal. It was every week, Wednesday night. It was like an after-school program. We'd show up and we'd sing and we'd have fun and we played games and we ate dinner together and we sang anthems then in worship as we were able. Even an annual musical was on the books for a few years. It was a place where we belonged, where we made friends, and where we learned what it meant to live the faith. Through it, our lives were changed for the better. It's where we learned scripture stories and the joy of trusting God and that bond of faith that holds us together as God's beloved people. And we wouldn't have had any of that without the many gifts it took to make that space possible. All the volunteers, the choir director, the pianist who showed up week after week, the caring adults who cooked for us and made props for our musicals, and of course it took finances too. Giving of time and talents and money, so that God's work could be completed in our lives in a way that has mattered so much, even now, 25 some odd years later. We've been talking a lot of stewardship the last week, no doubt, and in many ways, this particular circumstance in my life is a good reflection of what stewardship is at its core about. Using the gifts God has given us as a community to make an impact in the world that changes people's lives. Like the persistent widow we hear in the gospel story today, who fights for what is right, even though it's challenging along the way, Jesus indeed has gone to the mat for us through the years, so that we might know God's love and justice that changes us and our world for the better. And we have been recipients of this ferocious love through the years, through all seasons, good, bad, ugly, and the like. And we've experienced this sort of transformation in this congregation too, have we not? Just ask the folks who grew up here in the faith, who know what it means day by day to be loved by God. Just ask those who have had their spirits filled here by the music and the singing and the arts and the dramas that we've done. Just ask those who have been supported by the faith circle through the years. Or those who know God's love because they've made faithful friends a priority. Or those who've had an extra meal or two because of the food we've given to the pantry in our seasonal food drive. I don't say these things to toot our own horn, so to speak, but I do so because indeed lives have been changed here by our generosity and giving. And this next year, as we look ahead, we want to continue to make such impacts in other people's lives, and we want to even step further ahead into it. But it's no secret that we're already behind on this year's budget. We know that. And we've made do with less resources than we maybe had hoped we would have by this time. But that doesn't mean we can't still be part of God's work as we go. God's work that changes people's lives for the better. For what if in the year to come, what would it be like if we were able to send our kids to camp? To allow them to find those deepest gifts of God in their lives that usually happen in those places, camping, service trips, or otherwise. What would it be like if we were able to have a bigger impact in the lives of people who are affected by this opioid crisis, addiction, overdose deaths, or those affected by natural disasters near and far? But what would it be like if we were able to fight for our community to be even more inclusive and welcoming for folks who have historically been excluded, not just adults with developmental disabilities like at Faithful Friends, but what about people of gender and sexual minorities too, or people of racial minorities, or even people of different faiths? What if? There's anything we want to be able to do this coming year. Or we can't do them if we don't give of the gifts God has already given us. So we ask us, dearly beloved church, as Gail has led the way for us already, to seriously and prayerfully consider this coming week how we want to be a part of changing people's lives in the year to come. And how that we will give to make that possible. Maybe even more than we've done before. You should have received a letter in the mail this week with my name attached to it. With that letter, this pledge card, perhaps you've seen it. I think it's blue this year, is the color we got. Yeah. So I invite you, if you would, this week to spend some time reading Scripture, praying, talking with friends and family about what it means to follow God in this year to come, to listen for where Christ is leading us. And when the time is right, to make your pledge. We'll give our pledges next Sunday during worship. It's Reformation Day. It's a big celebration of what God has already done in our lives. Perhaps it's fitting in that we make our pledges then. If you can't make it, of course, tuck it in the mail, bring it to the office, and we'll add it in. We invite you into this work that has already begun. Not just for our sake, but for the sake of the life of the world. For if we don't work to make these ministries possible, who will? Indeed, God is at work. May we follow where God goes. Amen.